If you're searching for office space in Burlington and you sort those listings by the lowest rent first, you could be about to make the most expensive office mistake companies make. Right now in Burlington, you'll typically see Class B office around $27 per square foot and Class A office closer to $37 per square foot. And most companies assume the cheaper one saves money. Quite often, it does the opposite. Today, I'm going to show you why a $37 square foot office can cost less than a $27 square foot office once layout, efficiency, and employee reality enters the equation. It's not theory, just math, layout, and a bit of planning. I'm Susan, that commercial realtor. I help owners, tenants, and investors navigate industrial and office real estate in Burlington and across Halton. Built for business, backed by data, negotiating with bite. If you're evaluating commercial real estate in Burlington, this channel explains how these decisions really work before they become expensive lessons. When businesses take a look at office space in Burlington or Halton, the number they compare first is rent per square foot. And on paper, the cheaper space often looks like the obvious choice. That assumption is where many office decisions quietly go wrong. Rent per square foot tells you what the space costs. It doesn't tell you how well that space works. Once layout, efficiency, build-out costs, and usable workspace are factored in, the math can change quickly. Sometimes the higher rent becomes the lower cost. Class B office space in Burlington often appears inexpensive for a reason. Many of these buildings were constructed in the late 70s, early 80s, and you'll often see limited natural light, closed office corridors, minimal amenities, surface parking that barely works, older HVAC systems, occasionally no elevator, and that rent looks attractive. The risks appear controlled. On a spreadsheet, it feels safe. Yet, that's exactly where those hidden costs begin. Office layouts from older buildings were designed for a very different era of work, where partners took the windows and employees sat in interior spaces. Today's companies, they want the opposite. Open work areas with natural light, flexible meeting space, collaborative spaces. Older buildings struggle to deliver that without major renovation, and that renovation cost usually lands on the tenant. Let's walk through a very common Burlington office decision. You're touring two offices and both are 6,000 square feet. One is Class B and the other is Class A. Starting with the obvious comparison, 6,000 square feet at $27 a square foot is $162,000 a year. 6,000 at $37 a square foot is $222,000 a year. And on paper, the cheaper office is saving you $60,000 a year, which seems like an easy decision until you walk the space. Class B office tends to have long corridors and a rabbit warren of early 2000 offices. A few awkward corners nobody quite knows what to do with. And the windows? Those are usually sitting inside the two corner offices someone designed 20 years ago for partners who needed privacy, while the rest of the team works under fluorescent lighting. 300 square feet becomes circulation space and another 200 becomes leftover corners. That's about 500 square feet your team can't really use. And at $27 per square foot, that unused space costs about $13,500 a year. Your team can't work there, yet you're paying for it. Modern offices flipped that idea. Light went where people work. That's where efficient space planning starts. When companies plan space properly today, they often discover they need less space, not more. So let's head over to that Class A building with brighter workspace, light where the people work, not just those corner offices, better window lines, and more efficient design. Instead of forcing a layout into the space, the tenant works with a space planner early in the process. That planning often reduces the required footprint. The company realizes they don't need 6,000 square feet after all. They need 4,800 square feet of well-designed space. Running that math again, 4,800 square feet at $37 a square foot now comes to $177,600 a year. Suddenly, that difference between the two spaces is closer to $15,000. For that difference, the company is gaining natural light, modern HVAC, better amenities, efficient layout, a space employees want to use. That's when the conversation changes. At this point, the decision is no longer which office has the lower rent. The decision has now become which office supports how your business works. That's when companies stop comparing price per square foot alone. They start comparing cost per employee and cost per productive square foot. The operational costs some businesses are missing is that older buildings also bring operational friction. HVAC systems struggle to keep temperatures consistent, comfort complaints increase, maintenance issues surface slowly. Parking becomes a daily frustration, accessibility becomes a limitation. None of this appears in the base rent, all of it shows up in daily operations though. This is the part employers can underestimate. When you have dark space with poor layout, difficult parking, and no nearby amenities, employees notice. Even if they don't complain, recruiting becomes harder, retention quietly slips, hybrid teams stay remote more often. Class A will and can compete harder. They tend to offer better natural light, efficient floor plates, modern HVAC systems, reliable elevators, amenities such as gyms, cafes, and shared meeting space. They were designed for the way companies work today. But the bottom line is, they're competing harder for tenants because while Burlington has 12% vacancy right now, a significant portion of that vacancy sits square in Class A buildings, which means landlords are motivated. Incentives increase, build-out support improves, lease structures become flexible quickly. The advertised rent is not always the final number. Often the gap between Class A and Class B becomes much smaller than people expect. If I haven't said it enough, the biggest advantage tenants have is time. Companies that start their office search early have options, and they can design an efficient layout, negotiate build-out support, compare multiple buildings, and plan for future growth. Companies that start late, well, they lose that leverage. They take what's left. That's when cheap space becomes very expensive space. Layout also determines how long the office works for your business. A well-designed office allows teams to expand naturally, with more workstations, flexible meeting areas, and room for additional staff. A poorly designed office forces a relocation sooner than expected. Moving offices, that's expensive. Between construction, furniture, technology relocation, and operational downtime, the right layout can extend the life of a lease by years. So the question stops being which space is cheaper. The real question becomes which space helps your team do better work for the next 5 years. Cheap space locks problems in place. Better space often solves them. Remember the $27 a square foot office that looked cheaper? That's the one most companies regret 3 years later. Less expensive office space is not always wrong. For some businesses, lower rent and fixed costs are the right decision. Yet, for many companies, the lowest rent hides operational friction. Inefficient layouts, employee frustration, limited growth flexibility. The rate is what you see, efficiency, that's what you pay for. If you're evaluating office space in Burlington or anywhere in Halton, compare more than just the rent. Look at the layout, look at efficiency, look at what the space allows your business to do. And that's where the real savings live. If this video helped you think about office space a little differently, subscribe, like, and follow the channel. And if you're still sorting listings by the lowest rent first, you might want to stop doing that, most preferably before the math teaches you why. I'm Susan, that commercial realtor, built for business, backed by data, negotiating with bite. Now that you know, what are you going to do about it?